Okay, so now we're going to ask you to read something that's a little more scholarly, although I would call the Amy Tan and McWhorter and Lunsford pieces scholarly too. This one's just a little more complicated and a little bit longer, but it's going to complement the ideas that you've already been thinking about. So it's going to be a really nice complement to John McWhorter's TED Talk because Bronwyn Williams, in this article, is going to, in some ways, expand on McWhorter's ideas that your generation or a generation of young people are not lacking when it comes to literacy. Your literacies are just different, and that what we need to look at is how literacy is functioning in a culture. Like, what work does it do? One of the things he's going to talk about is this idea of cultural capital, meaning, I think the best example I could give you would be, why do we ask you to all read Shakespeare in high school? Do you really need to know how to read Shakespeare, or is it about participating in this culture where everybody else has read Shakespeare and knows that reference? And so that can give you cultural capital because it's a thing that you know that most of the culture knows. But it's actually really random that we decide that some texts matter. Shakespeare's better than People, those kinds of things, People magazine. Some of those are all a construct decided by our culture. So the title is long and might scare you. It talks about the perpetual literacy crisis, but it's like I said a few days ago, we've been screaming "get off my lawn" to young people for a very long time. Way back to when schooling was first starting, we've had critiques about your reading and writing ability. That just doesn't always play out. So I'm going to ask you to read this thoughtfully. And then the other thing I want you to do is try out some of the practices, really the college writing practices, which is annotating texts. So we've got some ideas for a structure that you could use, which asks you to take portions of the text and say, what does it say? What does it mean? Why does it matter? But really, you could annotate in any way that makes sense to you, making comments on some notes. And I would keep your notes because you might want to use them for the essay that you're about to draft next. So you read this piece, and then we have some guiding questions that, again, we hope are useful. The other approach you could take when you go to write in the discussion is you could actually decide, instead of starting your own post, you could respond to one of your peers that you want to kind of riff off of. If you choose that option, I would still want you to write a pretty meaty response, still a couple of paragraphs. But you could build on their ideas that you found interesting instead of starting over new. So just know that that's an option for you. This will be, besides some reflection work, this will be your last reading and discussion where you're talking about a reading, because up next will be the draft of your essays. So we're hoping all of this led into this, all of the reading that you've done so far and the writing that you've done so far will help build toward the essay that you're going to start working on soon. So yeah, thanks for reading. I think you'll like it. Just go into it like you'll like it. It'll be great. And we'll see you in the discussions.